Hello, everybody. This is Tom Davis again, recruiting coordinator for Student Athlete World. I'm actually doing second part in my virtual interviews with coaches and kids and that across the nation on recruiting. And I'm happy today to have Liz Hammerschmidt, good friend of mine, who's an umpire, a collegiate umpire. I think today we're going to touch on bringing a different perspective in as far as umpiring, recruiting, things that she sees. Also, being the mom of a softball player that I'm representing right now, she can add some input into that. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Liz and have her tell you guys a little bit about herself, what she does, and we'll roll from there. How are you, Liz? Good to have you.
I'm doing well, thank you. Family's safe and enjoying this time of year. How about you?
Good. Hanging in there, just busy every day, going through the COVID period and guiding people and trying to keep everybody sane through their recruiting process.
Very good. Well, I do appreciate you allowing me to come onto your show. I really enjoy what you have been doing, especially with these student athletes and what you've been providing for them. I think this is a great idea, what you're doing now, doing this virtual, having a face to the name, seeing, other clients' possibilities, and also they can actually get a different perspective from different avenues of their sport that they're participating in. So I do appreciate this very much. My name is Liz Hammerschmidt. I am from Akron, Ohio. I now reside in Ritztown, Ohio, which is just east of Kent State University, if anyone's familiar with that, close to Youngstown, not too far from that border of PA. I am a former D1 athlete from Kent State University. I was a softball player. I am now a mother of two daughters that play softball, and one also plays premier soccer, so they keep me quite busy. But I took a different approach with the sports. I absolutely love playing. I was a longtime competitor. I played competitive softball growing up. I was also in competitive powerlifting through high school and college. So I always had something that kept me on that competitive edge. I started umpiring when I was about 18, 19 years old. It was about the summer after my freshman year. And my brother-in-law was umpiring at a local league and just needed some extra head count to get involved. And so I did some games that summer, really enjoyed it, never thought anything of it. I just was on that path of got to get through class, got to get through school, move on and find a job and have a family, that typical follow the path of the white picket fence of have your family. So several years down the road, I was working for Sprint full time. I was a supervisor of technicians, and I had my future supervisor walk in the door. She was still in her umpiring gear, chest protector, shin guards, you name it, the uniform. She comes walking in the door, having trouble with her phone. And it wasn't the first time she's ever stopped in. So I just took the initiative and asked her, hey, how do I get back into the game? I really love softball. I talk about it all the time. I want to get more involved, eventually maybe get involved in coaching again. And she goes, meet me here at this time, at this place on this day. Okay, so I meet her there and she hands me off a uniform, chest protector, shin guard, shoes, and runs off. I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Little did I know how much that was going to provide for me and open so many doors for me. And I started doing a lot of the rec leagues around the Akron and Canton area and started getting involved in more with some tournaments that I was invited to. One of the bigger tournaments that really changed my life was the CompuWare tournament up in Canton, Michigan, which is still one of the biggest tournaments in the nation to this day. And I actually participated in that when I was playing travel softball as well. So that's where I was introduced by my conference coordinator at the time was Rick Havercroft, and he was one of the UICs and said, hey, you do an excellent job. I would love to give you games in the spring. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I haven't even touched a collegiate field. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't think anything of it. And my supervisor at the time, she was the conference coordinator of officials, umpires for the PAC conference in Pennsylvania, which is a Division III conference. And so I did some games from a previous before I met the conference coordinator for the MAC, and I wasn't even registered for college softball. She just needed a head count. It's just funny how like the trailblazing was like that, where I was invited because they needed head count. So this was back in 2013 of the summer. That fall, I was introduced, and I was rightfully so forced to go down to Clearwater, Florida, within a week's notice of attending this softball college exposure camp slash college showcase for athletes. But what they did is that umpires that came down would pay to get evaluated, and I remember telling my supervisor of officials, like, I don't have the time. I can't just up and leave my family. My kids are small. At the time, I think they were 5 and 3, maybe 4 and 2. I don't remember the age. I could probably do the math if I think about it. 2013. So yeah, 5 and 3. So I go down there and I get evaluated by some of the higher umpires that have done the College World Series, have done the Olympics, where I've done some international play, and also the coordinators for the ACC, the Big Ten, which Sally Walker to this day is still the Big Ten and now the Big 12 college coordinator for officials. And that's when she came to me and said, I would love to give you some games in the spring, be looking out for an email. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? So it just became surreal when the email started rolling in. And then, once you get registered and you start attending these coordinating meetings, and you're meeting these people from all across the country. And let me just tell you, it felt like I was getting recruited all over again, only this was completely different. You're meeting people from California, from Florida, from Michigan, doesn't matter where they're from, and they're on the same journey as you are. They're loving the game of softball, and they were trying to find a way to stay in the game, whether they had kids that played, whether they played themselves, or they coached themselves. And to this day, I still talk to many people that I have met from that year of 2013. So fast forwarding it, 2014, I had the luck of a draw and did my first D2 national at the college level. And the reason why I got selected in 2014, mind you, I'm only 8 months into it. One of the college officials, her mother passed, and they needed someone that was within driving distance to go to Salem, Virginia. And so I got a phone call to go down there, and I did my first D2 college national for softball. And then I did it again in 2015. And then starting in 2016, I did my first Division I regional at the University of Michigan. And since then, I have done Division I regionals. I did my first my first D1 super regional at the University of Arizona in 2019. And I mean, it's been a wonderful journey. And to continue to do something at the highest level for the sport that I absolutely love, besides being an athlete, this has probably overtook the experience that I had with college softball. It helped prepare me for the real world. It helped me prepare me for that discipline that I needed to be, to be an employee, to be that, dedicated employee. And then all of a sudden now, like I'm on the stage of having the best athletes in the country, in the world, on the same field is so surreal. So that, just to give you a little bit of a background of what I've accomplished. Not only that, I've also done 2 National Pro Fast Pitch Championships, one down in Baton Rouge and also one in Rosemont, Illinois, back in 2017 and 2018 as well. So that is a small background that I have accomplished so far.
I think one of the great things and one of the perspectives, Liz, by having you on here, as an umpire, okay, could you just go in a little bit, and it'll actually be interesting for parents to hear this. As an umpire and working at a big level like that, and then, going and doing, high school tournaments and all that, what do you see as an umpire as being your number one priority when you take the field and do a game?
I mean, there's several top priorities of being official on the field. Doesn't matter what level it is. My goals and the priorities that they set the standards for us is we always need to be professional. We need to make sure that we look the part, we dress the part, and we act the part. That's part of being an NCAA official, doesn't matter what sport it is. In the beginning of each manual that we study every single year, then gets revamped every year, is we have to make sure that we are approachable, we are professional, and that we are umpiring with integrity or officiating with integrity. So when I'm out there, and I'm not the only one that can speak on with this topic, is we want to make sure that we're setting the standard for every student athlete, because we want to make sure that our profession is also growing. Not only that these kids can be possibly professional athletes, but they can also take on another avenue besides coaching or being a professional athlete. They can also be an umpire at the highest levels at D3, D2, D1, possibly international, and also at the NAI and JUCO levels. So I want to be the best that I can and show them, hey, this is what you can do for a longevity part of your career as well.
Excellent. One thing that I think of, I mean, you hear about your number one priority is you're professional. You look the part, you are the part, you act the part. You know, athletes today in every sport, I think, that they have a higher way of interacting with officials and being able to more so take the lead role in it and stuff like that. Baseball is a big thing. I mean, I go back to when I was playing and everything. I mean, you might get to turn and look at an umpire and give like a head thing like that, but then it's like, okay, now you're on the border to where now every pitch you can go out, show your disgust, this, that, and the other, turn, question, talk, everything. What do you think? I mean, today, when you're doing softball, is there a lot of interaction like that with you and with the players, softball-wise?
It seems like it's becoming more of a positive trend. And I do say that in that way because there's a lot better coaching coming from the ranks from the youth. It just seems like it's starting to get better. It's progressing. The college coaches are becoming more educated with not only just the rule book, but also like with what we do. And it trends down with those athletes, those athletes, especially like the catchers or the on deck or the batters that are coming up to bat, they try to be professional along with you because they know that it's contagious. Body language can be contagious. Your reaction is contagious. And we try very hard not to take it personally because we can't take it personally.
Sure.
We have to be able to keep our body language at stay in a composed rate and make sure that we're not taking things personally. But it does start from the youth, which I've noticed from a nationwide venue, and also getting a lot of feedback from other officials from both sides of baseball and softball, is that coaches are becoming a lot more educated, becoming a lot more psychological with things, seeing that your reaction is going to affect the way that the game perceives, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
But I love it. If catchers, I love to be able to communicate with the catchers, which I know some coaches and some parents don't like us communicating with the catcher, and that's just their prerogative. Now, there's a lot of them that do because they do go back to their pitching coach or to their head coach and be like, hey, this is those pitches that you're questioning, and we do appreciate it when the catchers tell the coaches, hey, just it's outside, just a little bit outside, or they'll wave and just say it was out or down, but we love that because we want to make sure that we're on the same page, because we're not out there to get you. We're not out there to be like, haha, maybe you should have pitched just a little bit better on that corner. No, that's not, we're trying to get better too. And we're trying to work with you. We're not perfect. Usually our percentage rate is pretty high when it comes to the zone. And we want to get better. We don't like to cheat anybody out. We don't want to call that high pitch, and then when you come up to bat, then, you don't want that same pitch called. And some of the things that we also try to work on as officials is that we try to communicate better with you by saying the right terms, by saying, hey, that's just a little out of the zone. Some of the things that I teach, especially newer officials or officials that are trying to come up, is do not tell the catcher or whoever the coach is, don't tell them it was up or low, because they're from the side angle. Guess what they can see? They can see high and low. Mm-hmm. So be very careful about the verbiage that you are communicating back and forth with either the coaches or the catchers. You could just say, hey, that's just out of the zone. If it's, that we can see in and out, they can see up and down. So be very cautious about how you communicate back and forth.
Excellent. Going into it, parents, so much now. You see me sharing stuff with coaches and parents, youth, especially, young youth organizations, to where, altercations and, we go to events, me, I'm out in baseball, football, wrestling, hockey, everything, softball. And you never go to an event without the annoyance of at least somebody there from the stands and everything like that. And you know what? It's part of the game. You have to be able to sit there, and I always go back to an old term, rabbit ears. You're never going to see that I have rabbit ears and that I'm, paying attention to what you say and everything like that. But I think that it goes along because the whole thing is, I think when you hear that, and from what you're saying, hey, we call the game right down. We have no thing. We're not gaining anything from this team winning or this team winning. We're trying to call the game as the game is supposed to be called and everything like that. And my worry is at such an early age is when you hear this, that it just, the players, they pick up on it and run with it like that. And, I just think it's such a shame for the game. I want to go into, you're on the field, and I'll take this to high school. You see kids, like we do when we're there watching. You see their reactions, how they react to adversity, from striking out, making an error, everything like that. Give a little feedback as far as, you're looking to get recruited, you have a good skill set. Talk a little bit, Liz, about the attitude and the way you carry yourself around the game that helps in what college coaches, because I know that they talk to you, to umpires too, and they'll be like, hey, what do you think of this kid and everything? And, so, you're a valuable opinion, but talk a little bit about what that attitude from, when you first walk in. I talk about I always used to get there early so I could see everybody arrive. And a kid that I'm looking at, comes in and they're walking by themselves. Mom and dad are carrying all their stuff. Number one, I'm thinking right there, okay, this kid is not taking responsibility for stuff. So I got already I have like a little check in a box and everything. But just talk about the overall thing, because you see it from right on the game field.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it from all different levels, from 8U up to 18U golds, at the highest levels, and I still see it on the college field, unfortunately. And that's a responsibility that not only the student athlete needs to recognize, but also the parent needs to recognize when they're at the adolescent age. And when I'm working with some student athletes, because I'm also a catching instructor and a trainer, those are some things I always replicate with them, is that you need to have your body language checked. You need to make sure your attitude is checked. And when they are walking to and from the building, when I'm training with them, is your parents, they might have bought your equipment, but that is your equipment. You carry it. And I taught my daughters, who both play, from the first time that they stepped on a field with coach pitch at age 5. And I remember telling their dad, I was like, don't you dare carry their bag. I don't care how heavy, how lackadaisical they look when they're trying to carry it. I said, they need to learn their responsibility. And it's a little shameful to see that there are parents that will carry their kids' gear. And I just saw it yesterday at Cage Wars, because we're here in Ohio. We don't have 70, 80-degree weather all the time. But we have these Cage Wars where these, teams will come in, they'll pitch and catch and hit against each other.
Sure.
And I was watching an 8-year-old. She looks over at her dad. She goes, "Put my helmet in my bag," and walks away. I'm like, wow. But that starts from, you need to nip that now, because how is that kid going to react as they get older? Now, I have seen kids at the high school ages and how they've reacted. And I've seen coaches where they have done their due diligence and pulled their kid and, sat them down and explained to them about some things. But there's some coaches that don't, they fall into that realm of, well, I'm afraid that, mommy and daddy's going to, corner me, or I'm going to lose them, or they're just going to jump to another team. You start seeing that. We can go on and on about that, Tom, about that little avenue, but it does play a role, because when I'm evaluating umpires at some of these top tier tournaments and we see those attitudes, I see college coaches walk on by. I was down at a college showcase about a month ago. I'm not going to say where, but obviously, D1 wasn't allowed to be there, but there were some D2, D3 schools that were there. Sure. And there was a pitcher that was just having a rough time. Coach was, getting on her, and all you saw was her shoulders just go down. And the college coach that I was speaking with, she was nowhere to be found. I'm like, where did she go? I didn't see her for another 4 hours. She came back to my field that I was helping with the umpires to train. She was watching somebody else by then. So it does pay based on your body language, your reaction, and how you react towards your former teammate. With your teammates, towards officials, and towards coaches. And one last story, Tom. I actually had this happen to me twice in my college career. One at a Power 5 conference school and one at a mid-major, where both times a player reacted emotionally, because, we get passionate. We are very passionate when we're competitors. I've had two different instances where they didn't like either a pitch call or a play that happened that I made a call on, or another official has made a call on, and they reacted. And I had to give kudos to these two coaches, because one of them doesn't coach at this school anymore, unfortunately. But both those coaches, when that player came up to bat the next time, they pulled them. They made a batting change right from there. And both times those coaches said to me, without saying one word or having it loud enough, saying what they did was irresponsible, uncharacteristic, and they need to learn. And they made them sit down. And that right there made me respect the sport, the coaching staff, and our position so much better. It was amazing just to see that. And there's still good coaches out there that will discipline their players regardless of what someone may say or someone may see. And I think there needs to be more of that. We need to be held accountable for things. We need to be able to handle adversity at the highest point of our careers, or at the lowest point of our careers.
Cool. Go in now. A little bit about recruiting. You know what I do. I've been working in the recruiting world. I've been coaching for over 25 years. Still do a little baseball and everything like that. but I'm into the recruiting and work with girls and boys. Your your daughter Natalie, who I represent, she's 14, right?
Yeah, she'll be 15 here next month.
Exactly. Talk a little bit about you know, there's different services out there. I know that you did your due diligence and researching stuff, and talk about, you know, you as a, you know, I call you big time. You're a big time umpire and all that. And you have a lot of connects and all that around. But you know what? You've been a friend of mine and have known what I do. What was your thought process, and you know, just looking to get your daughter the recruiting assistance and to use somebody like me, because you know what I do and how it's different.
Being a parent with, you know, an athlete or athletes in your household, you have to be realistic and not have those parent goggles on. And like I said, be realistic about what your kids' abilities are. Every kid develops differently. I've seen kids that have participated with both my daughters, and they were like the 8U and 10U all-stars. And all of a sudden, once they get to this level now that they're in, they have either become so stagnant, or, you know, they plateaued, or they just have lost interest. And it's a shame. But there's also those few that have really strived and have excelled at their sport, and they are, you know, getting those looks and notices. But the reason why I chose you is because you are just so down to earth and realistic about things. You're not there just to give me a sales pitch. And I have noticed that with a lot of the athletes that you have dealt with. You have the background of a coaching experience. You understand how the college recruiting process has gone and how it's grown and the different levels that it has progressed and regressed in different ways, I should say. But as a parent, you have to be realistic about your child's abilities. You know, I saw some abilities with my oldest daughter and some things that she needed to deal with herself, because she deals with a lot of anxiety. And that comes with maturity. With her being able to see some of the different levels that I have umpired, she has come to many of my events, whether it was a Power 5 school, whether it was a mid-major, even just some of the local D2 schools that are around my area that I've umpired. She sees the different levels. And the only thing that she doesn't see that's different is the passion with these kids. You know, she may see the difference on coaching, what's available, you know, what's provided for them, and also the talent level. So what I tried to do in having you represent her is to give her some type of hope and something to strive for and motivation, so that way she can continue to stay focused, because her dream is to eventually play college softball. But we don't talk about Division I. We don't say D1 or bust. You know, I've seen that listed all over the social medias. We don't talk about that. She doesn't say, Mom, I'm going to go to Alabama because that's where you've been. Okay, that's great. I've been to Alabama. I've been at that biggest event. You know, I've been at some of the big top universities. Never does it come out of her mouth that's where she wants to play. She says she wants to play college softball, and that's what I try to do. Now, if she gets to that point where she might get offers from, you know, some of those big time schools, great. But that's not the only answer. Now, she wants to go into a specific field that may pursue her to be at a D3 level, at a D2 level. She wants to go into the medical field. So now we got to start thinking about, okay, what schools are going to help provide for her at the level that she's at. She hasn't even progressed yet. Like, she is still trending up from my perspective and from the coach's perspective, and she hasn't even stepped on the high school field yet. So we may see a different view when she steps on the high school field. My other daughter, Caitlin, she is 12. She'll be 13 in February, and she plays 2 sports. She plays soccer. She's a goalkeeper, and she's also a softball player. She catches as well as Natalie does. I see a lot of potential in her just because she's a dual sport athlete. So that may change in the next couple of years. I don't know what she's going to do. She may quit soccer. She may quit softball. Who knows? But as a parent, and when it comes to the recruiting process, you need to be open, honest, listen, because we have 2 ears. Listen to the different perspectives that are given to you. make sure whoever is representing you is being open, honest, and is being very direct with you, and also realistic, because you don't just want to pay someone that's going to give you all the bells and whistles, be like, oh yeah, you're going to go here. No, you want the options that are the best fit your kid. And that's why I chose you. That's why I wanted you to represent my daughters. Eventually Caitlin will get there. And also you were, what I like is that you're one-on-one with the student athlete. And that's what I wanted for the recruiting process. Yes, I have connections. I can easily contact one of my college coaches out of all the conferences that I may work. But I have to make sure that my daughter's doing the work. She's doing the Twitter account. She's emailing, even though she may not understand and may not like it, but she'll get there. I mean, obviously your child has to understand the process of communication, because guess what? We communicate every single day, whether it's text, email, or phone. So my soon-to-be 15-year-old is learning the process of how the real world is working. And she knows that this is going to help her regardless if she plays a sport or not in college.
I think that, yeah, you bring up some great points that I've talked about to you, and I talk about to all my clients, and that's teaching to be, independent for yourself, take responsibility for yourself, but also the one thing, even though you are contacting and these people know you and respect you, at this point, you are the parent of the child. And, number one, I mean, it's always going to be, is there a little bias there with Liz as to what she thinks about her kid? And I have so much respect for you. I mean, we talked about this, when we were talking about signing Natalie, and I'm like, you have a lot of contacts and everything. He said, but you know what, Tom? You're going to give them that outside objectivity of what Natalie's all about and everything, to which, like I said, we talked about Tim Ryerson in my interview yesterday, our president. Talked about it so much as the parent player role and everything. And it should be, I always tell my clients, get used to talking to me. Now, I talk to you a lot because we're interesting. I like to hear all the stories, and I talk to my parents as well. But when it comes to, I mean, you hear me say it all the time, Natalie, they want to talk to you, they want to talk to a coach, or they want to talk to me. You know what? The red carpets will come out on visitation day and everything like that, and they'll meet the parents, and believe me, they've done their homework and research on parents. The other thing, getting into it, what I like to do is Natalie's guys hasn't been on the high school field yet and everything. Good player, and like you say, progressing. There's a skill set there. By what I do and having these kids at this age, I talked to Tim about it. This is like one of my big things. I like to show the story of Natalie. Here's Natalie at 14 years old, and through constant updates, constant communication with coaches, okay, me getting them out nationwide, everybody, they might not hear from everybody, they have their information, they see their updates. So they're like, wow, look at the progress that she's making. This lets me know this kid's driven, she's working and all that. And the other thing, like you were saying, a little bit ago about, teaching kids nowadays to how to talk to people. Interesting, yesterday, Tim and I talked about, hey, the iPhones come to the kids at 5 years old, and they're so used to communicating technologically and all that when it comes time face-to-face or having a, phone conversation or a virtual thing, I mean, they're like, okay, what do I ask? Everything like this. I mean, that's all things that I try to teach to my clients. I actually um, had some football players this week who were calling me. Coaches were coming to their house, which is really a good thing and all that. And they're like, how did I said, be yourself. Ask the questions that we've talked about. Coach, what's your philosophy? Where do you see me coming in? What do you see me coming in and playing? Do you see me redshirting? Let them know. Let them know that you know a little bit about what you're talking about and you're interested in the program. And I just think that that's so important. And I commend you on how you go about it with Natalie and Caitlin, and I'm looking forward to helping the youngster when you feel that it's time for her. I thought one of probably my funniest stories, and I would love to have been a fly out on the field at this time, is when you actually had Caitlin come up and play with Natalie, and they're both catchers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And all of a sudden, the youngster comes in for the old one, enters the game for the old one. I would have loved to be there to hear that conversation at this age and everything like that. And I talked to you, and you're like, man, they handled it great. I mean, I could think of a lot of people that have been like, why are you coming in for me and everything like that. But two great girls and everything like that. Another topic I want to get into, you see, because of your umpiring and you doing all the different events, talk a little bit about the skill sets that you see from, those Olympic softball players to Division I, Division II, D3, down through high school and what coaches will look for. An interesting story, when I was at Chatham University, I had she was an all conference catcher, and her and I developed a really good relationship. I mean, she knew, I was a baseball guy and everything, and we used to have our conversations about why we do stuff and everything. But at the end of her career, and I just thought it was great, the PAC conference, the President's Athletic Conference, actually had a showcase game event against the United States Olympic softball team. And I can remember her coming up to me and saying, man, this is great. I'm so nervous. Coach, what is going to be the biggest thing? I said, wait till you see. I said, from playing in Division III to what you see coming out of that pitcher's hands, if you see it and recognize it and everything like that. I said, you're just going to be like astounded. I can remember her first at bat, and she struck out, and just looking in the stands and being like, holy mackerel, this is, so like that. Talk a little bit, Liz, about, because you see it, with all the games that you do, the different skill sets and what it takes, because you know those athletes and all that, because you umpire them. Talk about the different skill sets between the levels.
I mean, obviously there is a skill difference, with the different divisions. I mean, there's a lot of players that are at the D2, D3 levels that should be playing Division I. I saw that, umpiring my two D2 nationals. I couldn't believe it. I was looking over at my peers and I'm going, these kids should be playing Division I. And they're like, yeah, but think about like what was probably offered for them or what, they're looking to go to school for. So, just things like that. Or maybe they, kind of like what you hear with a lot of the male sports, they peaked at age 18, 19, or 20, so you see, yes, a lot of times the games are going to be a lot faster, stronger, quicker. I mean, but what's same is the love for the sport. That's what you are going to see. Now, some of the things that you will see with some of these players, a lot of these kids, they developed a little quicker. The pitching, yes, you see that the pitching is, got some movements, is very strong. But like I said, to be honest with you, there's not much of a difference when it comes to the love of it. But here's another, I could give you a perspective of the differences. There are kids out there, the reason why they choose the certain level that they do, or are getting recruited by the certain level, is how do they handle the exposure? And I talk about this a lot with some of these athletes, some of these pitchers that I come in contact with at the facility I work at, that are getting recruited or had just signed. They're juniors or sophomores, and they're high prestigious pitchers within the state of Ohio. And I'll ask them, so tell me, would you be able to handle 5,000 fans screaming, cheering, booing, just going crazy? Would you be able to handle that with all that pressure, being on ESPN or what have you? And they just kind of look at me like, why are you asking me this question? Like, you need to be able to think about the big picture here. And that goes for the same for being an umpire. Can you handle the 5 fans behind you or the 5,000 fans behind you or around you? That's what's going to make you the elite player or umpire. But I know we're talking about players. How can you handle the big picture? When you are going on these recruiting trips or when you're going to these games and you see the environment, can you handle being a pitcher in the circle with fans that are screaming and telling you suck and all this? Can you handle that adversity? Or would you rather have, maybe, go to like a mid-major or D2 or D3, have maybe 50 or 100 fans? What sounds better to you at a personal level? Because all of us have different criterias. We can handle different things. Some of us can't handle the pressure. And we see that. I know you have seen that in the past, Tom, with all different sports and avenues. Some of these kids can't handle that pressure. They choke. And we see that in the professional levels too. Some of these athletes are great athletes that are eventually going to be great teachers, great coaches, great mentors of this game. And a small percentage of them are going to be the ones that can handle those big time events. And that goes for the same thing with us on our side as coaches, as officials. Can we handle the pressure? And those are some things that you really have to think about as being an athlete, being a parent of the athlete, looking from the outside looking in.
That's a great. I love that. I talk to my players when I'm coaching about it all the time. I'd say it actually goes back a little bit, and I'm gonna go back to Ty Cobb, who was one of the greatest players in baseball history and everything. Not the most beloved and all that. When he showed up, I mean, people booed, they threw stuff at him and all that. This guy soaked it. He's like, if they're booing you, then you know that you're great. And it's a fun. So I mean, I talk, and that goes into the psychological stuff of talking and the intricacies of the game and everything. And it's like you said, the players being able to handle that. It's such a great point. I've been in events to where we've gone out and there's thousands of people there, and some kids will sit there and you just see them looking around. They're starstruck. They're like, right away, you're like, oh my God, is this too much for them to comprehend and take in right now? Where other people walk out and, it's like, okay, where's my bands? Tom, when will you be with me? Get me stretched out, get me ready to go, everything like that. So it's funny. And I really think that you are correct. And when you're saying, you go around, and I talk to so many people, I'm like, I have Division I talent playing Division II and Division III. Um, Division I, there's only so much money to go around. And you know as well as I do, 75% of that money is right there, is right or left-handed, and who's on the hill and everything like that. Pitching's the name of the game, softball-wise, baseball-wise. You can never have enough of it. And, I've had coaches still like baseball coaches. Well, is it 2020 season, hasn't it? Do you know of any JUCOs or anybody for 2020, let alone 2021, to where my kids are committed? No, I have a couple, but they're position players, maybe dual players that are still out there. I mean, they're in the mix, getting ready to make their decisions and all that. But I have college coaches all the time. Tom, arms. I go to showcases. Find me arms. Find me arms. Find me arms. So then you get into the thing, like I said, between, the financial aspect and the academic aspect, softball. I will say, I talk to people, not many young ladies are going to play professional softball, make a living at it and everything like that. So you're actually making a choice that your first choice has to be academic and what's going to take care of you the next 40 years of your life. And the whole thing is you're going to get to do what you love to do the best, play softball. And that's why, like, I have girls that are Division I talent that are playing Division III because they're great academically. A lot of academic money comes through there. Great academic institutions. They're choosing that school, and they go and they're great players at D3. And you see them, and other coaches are like, how did you get this kid? Because they're smart. They're taking care of themselves for their future, but also still doing the thing they love. You kind of back me a little on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a female, we haven't reached that pinnacle yet of we're going to have a professional career. There's such a small percentage. There's still some names out there that you'll hear here and there out of any sport that are at the professional level, but it's not quite there where on the male side. And I'm not trying to make it a gender thing or try to separate that part, but let's be realistic. I mean, we have to teach our young daughters that academics come first. Not every kid has, that 4.0 or above, average, but we need to teach them the importance, because we don't know what that college career is going to provide for them. We don't know if it's going to be an avenue for the sport that they're participating in. It could be something, totally off the subject or off the wall that they never even thought of. And they have to, think about it. Like, I have a marketing degree. I'm not doing anything that's with a big box business, with marketing. I'm actually doing my own. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing my own. So that's, an avenue that you can think of. And I'm almost 40 years old, think about it. So, not everybody goes in the same direction that they think that their dream job or dream school is going to provide for them. Not every male is going to go into college thinking he's going to go into the professional sport that he's participating in. And that's where the mindset that you have to separate yourself as a parent and as a student athlete, that you're going there because you're provided an education, a life-changing experience that could open up so many different doors that may not be something that you thought of, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to feed a lot of that stuff into your head, but you want to make sure you're being represented by somebody who's going to give you the realistic path, instead of, well, if you choose door number 3 or if you choose door number 4, it's like, no. Follow the path that's made for you, because you're going to end up having those branches branch out, per se, that will be provided for you. You never know who you're going to run into, what you're going to run into as well. I wanted to add this, and I forgot to add this into the last topic when I was mentioning about the big exposure, Tom.
Sure.
The media plays a big part on what you decide or where you decide to go. You got to remember, we're at this day and age of cell phones. You said 5-year-olds and now are carrying iPhones all around. Everybody has something on them that's going to record what you're doing. So please, as an athlete, be careful how and where and what. I could give you all the different descriptions of how you react. Somebody's always watching. Somebody's always got a phone recording or something on them. That's also going to play a role of where you decide to choose, of what school you decide to go to, because everything that you do is going to be exposed. The bigger the institution, the more exposure you're going to have. And I'm telling you, even at the lower levels to the higher levels, something's always streaming. It doesn't matter where you're at. Every school is streaming a sport. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's flow wrestling, flow softball, if it's streaming on their actual website, if it's ESPN, Fox, it doesn't matter. Something's always being recorded. Something's always live streaming. So just remember that and be very cautious about how you react, how you behave, and how you treat others.
Well, I will tell you what, I really think that we've covered some interesting avenues here, and I respect your views and your opinions, and that's why, you know, I'd like to get you out in front of the people and everything. So Liz, thank you so much for being a part, and I'm sure you'll see this on social media a little bit later. And any way that I can, you know, help you, you always know that I'm there. And you know, you take care, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights with everyone.
No, I appreciate you having me on. And Tom, if you may, let me spread the word about our podcast. Tony Williams from Missouri and myself, we created a podcast back during the whole shutdown in the springtime when we weren't umpiring, but it's called Both Sides of the Mask. You can find us on all the platforms of all the podcast avenues there. And also you can find us on Facebook. We have a website, bothsidesofthemask.com. We have an email address, bothsidesofthemask@gmail.com. So if you are interested in possibly becoming a podcast interviewee, I should say, we'd like to be on there, or if you'd like to check it out, we are on all platforms of the podcast world. So we're two umpires that talk about, yes, officiating, but we also talk about the sport. We've had Tom on twice, which has been a pleasure. And thank you again. I really appreciate everything, Tom.
No problem. And yes, Both Sides of the Mask, I have enjoyed being with Tony on there. I'm going to have Tony as an interview probably a little bit later. Very interesting guy, and it's so funny to have the two umpires, my two coaching enemies. You know how coaches and umpires go. So it's funny, and we get into some interesting stuff. But again, thank you. Say hello to hubby. Tell Natalie that I did not say what you told her.
She knows better.
Time. And you take care. Have a good day, and I appreciate all that you do and your great communication with me, Liz.
Thank you. Have a great holiday.
You too.
Thank you.